I am Shusara Kumara. Welcome to Satsang. You are beginningless. You are endless. You are divine. Good evening and Happy New Year. This is Shusara, and I'm joined, of course, by Pielian. I hope you all had a beautiful New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And thank you again for joining us for Satsang tonight. I think we're going to start with the protection. I hope you heard her laugh because every week I forget this. She always has to remind me. So I beat her to the punch tonight. Everybody, take a nice deep breath for me. Close your eyes and get yourself centered. Mother, Father, God that I am, through the great central sun hierarchy, through the office of the Christ, through the order of Melchizedek, I call upon Archangel Michael to bring the sapphire blue ray. Cut away, cut away, cut away anything in all of our four lower vehicles not emanating directly from our I am presence. I now call on Archangel Zachiel, keeper of the violet flame. Blaze, blaze, blaze the violet flame through all of our four lower bodies. Transmute, transmute, transmute all the psychic debris Michael has cut free. I now bring forth the invincible ring past knot and the mirror blue light of invisibility to completely surround each of us. And now I call forth a shaft of pure Christ light, one shaft to surround each one of us, and I ask that they be brought to the center of the earth, where I call on Archangel Gabriel to seal these tubes of light. And I ask the legions of Michael to completely surround them. And now I ask that our vibrations be raised high above the psychic and astral worlds to the highest realm of illumined truth we each can attain at this time. And now, Mother, Father, God, we place ourselves in service to you and to humanity. And Pielian and I place ourselves in service to all of you this evening. We ask that only that which is direct from you be permitted into our perceptions, and that all else of the lower mind be kept out. And we ask that only that which is direct from you be permitted through us. And because we have asked this, we consider it so. So be it. All right. If memory serves me, we ended up last week before our meditation talking about third-person communication. Yes, or third-party communication. Good. And I got some feedback that there were there's some kind of fuzzy gray area in that, and it doesn't surprise me. I mean, this is a topic, when we have actually had this in physical satsang. Now, our physical satsang sessions will run hours, so we've actually had days where this was all we talked about. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that only after about 40 minutes of conversation that there would be questions. So Pielian, do you want to hit me with what the kind of the main focus of that question was that came up?
Yes. Okay. All right. So this actually, I was talking to my mother afterwards. She brought up some really good points. So she was saying, of course, that she agrees with this whole thing completely. But she was saying that it seems like it's being said that you never say anything about anyone except if you're actually talking to that person. And she said that it's kind of almost impossible when you think about it. She said, what if you need to bounce something off someone? What if you need to vent? What if you need advice? Things like that. Like, how do you go about doing that? Not everyone has a guru or a guide or something like that to discuss these things with.
Absolutely. And it's a good question because there are a couple different points in there that are kind of looked at differently. Concerning bouncing an idea off of somebody, that's fine. And I think, like you had mentioned to me earlier, what if say you're a new mom and you have questions about what you're supposed to do because your child's doing certain things. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. Certainly nothing wrong with going to someone that you truly believe to have a greater level of understanding than you do to get that question answered. The biggest thing that we want to make sure we take care of is that we aren't making our question into a personal issue, right? So there's nothing wrong with bouncing an idea off of somebody. Like you're looking for constructive criticism, whatever, that's fine. So what I'm really talking about is how we deal with issues that we have with people. And, go back to like the beautiful example of a girl who has a boyfriend and they get in a fight and then she wants to bring her issues to her best friend because her best friend will sit there and listen to her and give her advice, blah, blah, blah. That is what I'm talking about, in a nutshell. Like that is the big no-no. Because remember, the girlfriend doesn't have the personal experience with the girlfriend's friend doesn't have that personal experience with the boyfriend. And it's placing her in a very tough position where now she, first of all, it's her best friend who's bringing her the stuff. So she's automatically going to want to side with her best friend, right? I mean, that's just how people are raised to be. And on top of that, it's not fair to the guy because he's not there to defend himself. He's not there to say, wait, she's only telling you a portion of the story and she left this whole huge chunk out, right? And now it has clouded this friend's vision of who the boyfriend is and how he functions. And it's just not fair to him. So the big question to really ask yourself, and, yes, it seems like it would be very strange, right, to move through the world from this place. And initially it does feel a little strange. But the question is, how many words are really necessary in the world? Right? Like when we're speaking, when we're around people, how much time do you spend filling it with words that really don't need to be there in the first place? And this is a key thing for people because what they don't realize until they really start looking at something like this is how much time they fill with fluff that means nothing because they feel like they have to fill the space. Because people are, now remember, like at the very core of the personality, right? The one personality that's presenting itself here in everybody. At the very core of it is this sense of shame and this sense of self-doubt and, anything negative you can think of, it's sitting there. So at the core of the personality, there's this unease about who I am, right? And so this is what we do. We have to fill the void because we're not comfortable sitting in the void. If you're sitting in the void, it means you have to look at who you are, right? And very few people are really truly comfortable with their own presence. And that's why people go home and leave a TV running all evening, even though they're not watching it. It's because they want to hear the background noise because it fills this space up. And if they don't, they're left with themselves. And people don't like to sit that way. It's very uncomfortable. So when we can really see that, now we go, okay, so let's look at like the last conversation I had with my friend. How much of it was actually like really good, valid communication? And how much of it was just me complaining about something or listening to her complain about something, or the two of us complaining together about something else, right? I mean, how much of it was the two of us talking about our dreams and the things that we're working on to really, I want to do this, like, well, healing, and you'd have beautiful things to talk with people about now. All the Add Your Energy work that we do. And yeah, we're really trying to get people involved and how can we, make a difference in the world. And that's beautiful communication to have with somebody. But to sit down with your friend and say, oh, what'd you do today? Oh, I went to work and I had a crappy day. And then they start complaining about their boss and complaining about, whoever. And what purpose is it serving, right? that's what we start to really see. What purpose does our communication serve? And you will realize in pretty short order that, you know, how your mom always used to say, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. There's truth to that. It's a beautiful, beautiful comment. And people don't take it seriously.
My mom actually said that last night.
Yeah.
We were talking about it.
Yeah. And it is so valid. And then you realize, oh my gosh, like, so when I'm in that space, like, I don't have all that much to say. Now that will shift, because after a while you have a lot to say, because everything pretty much you're bringing forward is a positive, beautiful thing. But it is very true. It's a brilliant question, because this is something that every student I've had moves into at some point. They're like, but what do you talk about anymore? And I will look at them and be like, well, what do you need to talk about? You know, you can fully experience a moment with a person and the space that you're sharing with a person without speaking a word. And you can be there together and you can experience it together, right? And come through the other side of it, having had that experience, and feel very connected in it. But you don't have to be talking about it the whole time, right? So like sometimes when we do intensives, we have quiet times, right? Going forward, we'll have full-blown just quiet intensives, because there's just no need for speech. Usually it just doesn't serve a great purpose. Now, if you have someone in your life that you know has deeper understandings, and you are in a really troubled place, then go to that person. You know, there's a reason that psychologists are in business, right? And they do serve a purpose. They serve a beautiful purpose. And a lot of people out there could probably use some help that way, instead of turning to a girlfriend, right? And the big thing is you can, and this is something that, you know, my guide, Atona, brought to me one day. I can't remember exactly what was happening, but I remember it was a friend of mine was coming to me. And of course, we'd always been in that place where we would always try to help each other with our issues. Now, we were never the kind of people who got together to complain about stuff. We really were very proactive in how we viewed it, right? So we would try to work our way through it. But she was coming to me because she was having issues with her husband. And I remember Atona saying to me, you know, do you want to be responsible for her psychological well-being? And when she said it, I was like, no, you know. I mean, do you feel qualified to be responsible for her psychological well-being? And I'm like, no. She's like, then don't get involved, because that's what you're taking on. You know, you have someone who's coming to you, kind of like my role as a guide, right? When someone comes to me and they commit to doing this work and I commit to functioning as a guide for them, well, I'm responsible, you know, and I'm holding a level of responsibility for that person. And this isn't really any different. You know, people are coming to you, and the advice you give them, you know, if it works, great. If it doesn't work, guess who's going to be held accountable for that, as far as the other person is concerned anyway. Yeah. So how much do you really want to be getting involved with? And then, you know, if we're just talking about talking, how much just space is filled with just useless, ridiculous talking? Yeah. I mean, people just sitting watching TV and talking at the TV screen. Like what? Like what is that? You know, and this is what people do. Just because you have the capacity for language doesn't mean you have to utilize it all the time. You know, you find out more in, like I love the analogy. If you look at the written language, you know, what is it that makes the meaning out of written language? And if you really sit with the question, you see that it's the spaces that give it meaning. Because without the spaces, it's nothing. It's just a bunch of letters.
I have to write that down.
Ooh, she had a moment. Oh, she is too. She's going to write that down. But it's the truth. I saw that so clearly one day. I was actually looking something and I was like, oh my goodness, like if there were no spaces, this would mean nothing. And it only has meaning because of the spaces. So the meaning is in the space. The meaning is in the void. Right? So allow yourself to get in the void. Be in that quiet. It's a beautiful space to be. You know, and I'm home during the day, and if my children are at school and my husband is at work, probably 98% of the time, it's just quiet in my home. I have nothing on, nothing. It's just quiet, and it's beautiful. But most people just wouldn't be comfortable with that. They'd feel like they have to fill it with something. So maybe practice that for a while. Practice just being silent. You know, it's a beautiful thing to do is take like one day a week and have a silent day where you just don't speak. That's a beautiful exercise. You learn a lot. Okay, so she's still writing. Do you think that we have kind of covered what we need to cover there, or do you think there's any more that needs to be brought forward?
No, I think you did, and you actually took it to a whole nother level. I think the biggest concern was for people that don't have, you know, like a guide right there to talk to, or, you know, like, who do you go to? But, you know, you said psychologist, something like that, or someone that you feel is qualified, or someone that is willing to take on that responsibility.
That's right. And certainly, you know, you are your own master. So let's not forget that, right? And just because this personal self seems to be experiencing this level of reality where it doesn't feel like it knows a whole lot, you know everything there is to know. And you also know there's nothing to know simultaneously. But beyond that, start to look to yourself, right? And what I used to do, it wasn't purposeful. It just kind of came. I don't know how long it was, maybe a year into my work, in a moment where like something would trigger me and I would recognize it. And, you know, so I got to the point where like as soon as it hit, I was right there observing it and watching the reaction that the body was having, you know, energetically, and just the thoughts that would run. And in that moment when everything, remember we talk about, there's this moment where like you will end up feeling like you have to take some kind of action, right? And that is the swing. Well, I started hearing this voice. Of course, it's my own voice, but I'm hearing this voice, and it literally stopped me in my tracks, because the voice said, "What would love do?" And it was like, oh, what would love do? Right? And in that moment, it was like, well, it wouldn't do what I was about to do. Right? Stop. So even that statement could serve a beautiful purpose here, because if you have someone, you know, coming to you and you have this opportunity to, you know, vomit all over them with information about other people, is that a loving thing to do? No, certainly not. So, you know, it is, you know, to Pielian's mom, I totally understand. I'm speaking directly to you because I have walked it. I do understand. I remember the first time I was in a group of people in conversation turned to a place I was not comfortable with. And in that moment, I knew I would have to do something, because I knew I was not capable at that point of being in the conversation and hearing what was being said about the person that was being talked about, and not have it affect my view on that person. Now, I could delude myself and say, oh, it won't affect me. I knew enough at that point to know that that was not going to hold water, because I knew it would. And I had to make a choice. It was like, okay, so you're either going to walk away, which is easy enough to do, and then you risk them being like, oh, isn't she snooty or something, or you have to address it. And I chose to address it. You know, I literally looked at the people and I said, you have no business having this conversation about this person. And they were shocked. They were absolutely shocked that I brought that forward. But it was right action, you know. And like I've said so many times, when you've been given deeper understandings, okay, it is now your responsibility to live by those understandings. And this is part of your journey. It is part of your path, and it is part of how you move into mastery. So in the beginning, the understanding is only mental, and you haven't owned it yet. You haven't had the experiential side of it that actually truly locks it in place for you. So in the beginning, it's going to feel awkward, right? Because it's really not yours. It's kind of still someone else's, and you're trying to live up to that. That's what it feels like. And it does feel awkward, but this is part of you, growing and evolving and moving into greater and greater levels of mastery. And it never ends, So what you become comfortable with today, there's something else that's going to come forward tomorrow that will be just as challenging. I mean, this is just how it is. It's an ongoing process. There is no kind of end point to enlightenment, so to speak. And this is the space we're all in. So it's like a test all the time. Where are you going to function from? Who do you choose to be today? Do you choose to be Christ in form? Or is the choice going to rest with, I'll just be the personal self, and I'll be selfish and self-centered and self-righteous, and I'm going to function from that place? Well, choice is up to you, and you can sit where you choose to sit, right? And so it's fine either way. It's your own experience, and that's cool, really. But if you are on a conscious path, if you're listening to this program, you are being held accountable for your actions and accountable for how you're functioning in the world, right? So take these teachings and then apply them to your life. And in the beginning, maybe it's just that you start to notice as you're talking. This is normally what happens with my students. They'll come to me and be like, oh my gosh, like I halfway through a conversation, it hit me that, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. I'm in the middle of it, and then I had one student, she used to crack me up because she'd be like, all of a sudden, like I could hear myself saying to myself, shut up, shut up, shut up. Right. But she'd keep talking. And I was like, well, that's a step. At least you heard the voice that said, shut up. Right. Maybe next time you'll catch it quicker. And so this is the journey. No one's expecting that, you'll hear me say something today and by tomorrow you've mastered it. I mean, my goodness, if it was that easy, none of us would be here. Truly. So, third party communication it's tough. It's really tough because this is how society functions. I mean, the whole globe almost functions in this place. Not everybody, but the vast majority. And, if it's not people talking about their neighbor, it's, people talking about different factions within the same city. And then you've got countries talking about other countries. And, where does it end? Yeah. Oh, us against the aliens. We'll make it even bigger. Where does it end, right? Ultimately, it ends with the biggest one of all, which is me against God, which is what it's all about anyway. That's what it all comes down to, right? Every single opposition is all about me versus God. So you actually will see that running in all these communications as well. Remember, anything that's standing on the opposite side of you, you actually, when you're looking at it and opposing it, you're seeing it as God, even though you can't see it. It's unconscious, but it is there. You're seeing it as God. So you're lashing out, right? Saying bad things about, doing whatever it is you're doing, because you have this place that consciousness has kind of latched onto that said, I got kicked out of my home and he won't let me back in. Right? Yeah. We good with that? Okay. One thing, this is a funny night. We're going to kind of bounce around because I know where I want the show to end, but how we're going to get there will be quite interesting. I got an email today from a spiritual guide that I adore. And it wasn't really personal to me. She was just moving it along to a group of people. And it was concerning Pope Francis. And I read this email, and as soon as I did, I was like, I feel like I have to share this with the world. Like, it was such a big deal to me to read this because it touched my heart. It touched my soul. It was so beautiful. And I actually put it on my Facebook page because I was like, this is the stuff that for people like me, for people like Pielian, and most, I'm assuming just about all of you listening, this is one of those things where we grew up knowing this stuff. We just knew it through and through, but we never got confirmation of it, especially through the church, right? And I wasn't raised Catholic, but it doesn't matter what. Pick a church, right? It all, holds Jesus as the one begotten Son of God, which is completely separate from everything else. And wouldn't that be great? But you can never get there, right? Because he's the only one. Oh my gosh, like what do I do? Right? But for those of us who grew up in an inward way, kind of rebelling against that because it just didn't feel right. This was so beautiful. So they had this, the Third Vatican Council, and the Pope made a speech, and I think this was back in early December. Okay, and I'm just now getting it, so I'm just not out in the world the way everyone else is. But let me just read you the article. But most of it's his quotes, and I just think it's fantastic. So let me just read this. Okay. So the Third Vatican Council concluded today with Pope Francis announcing that Catholicism is now a modern and reasonable religion which has undergone evolutionary changes. The time has come to abandon all intolerance. I mean, how beautiful is that? We must recognize that religious truth evolves and changes. Truth is not absolute or set in stone. Now, I'll remind you, this is a quote, okay? Even atheists acknowledge the divine. I love this. Through acts of love and charity, the atheist acknowledges God as well and redeems his own soul, becoming an active participant in the redemption of humanity. I mean, he literally is calling, she's over here clapping, he's calling atheists light workers. I mean, it's fantastic. It's just fantastic. Okay, and he goes on. Through humility, soul-searching, and prayerful contemplation, we have gained a new understanding of certain dogmas. The Church no longer believes in a literal hell where people suffer. This doctrine is incompatible with the infinite love of God. God is not a judge, but a friend and a lover of humanity. God seeks not to condemn, but only to embrace. Like the fable of Adam and Eve, we see hell as a literary device. Hell is merely a metaphor for the isolated soul, which, like all souls, ultimately will be united in love with God. Oh, this is just fantastic. And it just gets better. If it's possible, it gets better. Let's see. It says, in a speech that shocked many, the Pope claimed, all religions are true because they are true in the hearts of all those who believe in them. What other kind of truth is there? In the past, the Church has been harsh on those it deemed morally wrong or sinful. Today, we no longer judge. Like a loving father, we never condemn our children. Our Church is big enough for heterosexuals and homosexuals, for the pro-life and the pro-choice. For conservatives and liberals, even communists are welcome and have joined us. We all love and worship the same God. Our statement in the Pope's speech has sent traditionalists into a fit of confusion and hysteria. And here's a quote again. God is changing and evolving as we are, for God lives in us and in our hearts. When we spread love and kindness in the world, we touch our own divinity and recognize it. The Bible is a beautiful holy book, but like all great and ancient works, some passages are outdated. Some even call for intolerance or judgment. The time has come to see these verses as later interpolations, contrary to the message of love and truth, which otherwise radiates through Scripture. In accordance with our new understanding, we will begin to ordain women as cardinals, bishops, and priests. In the future, it is my hope that we will have a woman pope one day. Let no door be closed to women that is open to men. In addition to the Pope's sweeping calls for tolerance and a new progressive understanding of Catholicism, he condemned racism, raising his voice and pounding the podium in front of him. Pope Francis spent over an hour castigating anti-immigrant politicians, parties, and individuals. Wagging his finger sternly with righteous indignation, the Pope shouted, "Racism today is the ultimate evil in the world. When Italians, Spanish, or French turn their back on the boats of African immigrants seeking a better life, are they not like the innkeeper who told Mary and Joseph that there was no room for them and the infant Christ? These migrants are children of God, and we are commanded to love them." His voice loudly echoing through St. Peter's Basilica, the Pope stated, "Those who would dare to turn immigrants away, be they legal or undocumented, turn their backs on Christ himself. A racist is not a true Christian. A racist casts aside his humanity to become a beast, a demon. He is the embodiment and personification of evil, a Satan." That is a big statement. Fantastic. To a chorus of thunderous applause, Pope Francis stated, because Muslims, Hindus, and African animists are also made in the very likeness and image of God, to hate them is to hate God. To reject them is to reject God and the gospel of Christ. Whether we worship at a church, a synagogue, a mosque, or a mandir, it does not matter. Whether we call God Jesus, Adonai, Allah, or Krishna, we all worship the same God of love. This truth is self-evident to all who have love and humility in their hearts. And that is so true. So true. All seekers come to that place where you truly get it. You truly get it. In an announcement that shocked many people, Pope Francis warned that those who seek to deny a home to the migrant, to the African, and the Muslim risk their membership in the church. We will consider excommunication for those whose souls willingly dwell in the darkness of evil, of intolerance, and racism. Satan himself is a metaphor or a personification for the collective evils of mankind. Today, these evils manifest foremost as racism, intolerance, religious persecution, and bigotries of all kinds. How amazing is that? I mean, I like wanted to jump up and down when I read that. It was so huge for me because I just got it, and so many of us have been waiting for this moment for so long, a pope who actually comes forward as the Christ, because that's exactly what we're getting right there, and as Athena's the one who sent it to me. And as she said, a true representative of the office of the Christ and the order of Melchizedek. It's like the voice of truth occupies the papacy. Finally, it's so beautiful. So everybody, send your blessings to Pope Francis and keep him in your prayers that, he have a long life and continue his work, because wow, what a boon to humanity. It's just amazing. Just amazing. All right. Very good. So I really felt like I needed to do that tonight. And let's see, we've got, 20 minutes or so left, 25. I wanted to talk about something kind of specific. This is interesting. Pope Francis here, really moves into that space where he's saying to people, God lives in you, right? I think I got it from Athena. She said this particular way, that God lives in you and through you as you. And I love that, because that's exactly it. It's like you hold the whole universe in you, right? God is in you, but yet you are in God, right? Because everything is in God, but God is in you. It's all this, I love that beautiful like double tube torus thing, and it's like the infinity symbol all turning in on itself, because that's what we actually are. And so I want to take a minute to talk about how backward we are here in the way we view reality. Okay. So if you can imagine that there is like when I was little, I kid you not, when I was little, I always thought to myself, if there is a hell, because I didn't believe in a physical hell, I never did. But I always thought to myself, if there is a hell, it's here, right? It's Earth. She's shaking her head. And we all seem to get this. It was like, because how else could that's just the only way it could be. Like nothing else makes sense. This place does not make any sense. And isn't that the truth? Because in the illumined worlds where it's non-polarized, there just this battle of opposites that plays out here just doesn't exist. It just does not exist. And what we are experiencing here, or seem to be experiencing here, is like literally the polar opposite of what you actually are, what your nature is, and everybody else as well. The nature of God. I mean, you couldn't be more opposite than what God is than here and everything that we're dealing with. Because remember, even our positive states of mind are born out of the negative here, right? So most people, even when they're happy, aren't actually happy. They're covering up guilt, and they're covering up, repression and all kinds of stuff by putting a happy face on. So here's what I want to challenge you with, because we just moved into a new year. So understand, and it was a big one too. We just had that. There was a super moon on the 1st, the new moon, and there's another super moon toward the end of the month. Is it the last day of the month or something? It's toward the end of the month anyway. There are like 5 super moons this whole year, and 2 of them are in January. So understand that on a like within the hierarchy for this planet, that at the end of the year, our hierarchy actually, like they will look at everything, like what the plan for this year was, and then they'll look at what actually got done, what humanity was capable of doing and where we ended up. And then they kind of have to recalibrate everything and set a new plan for the next year. So right now we're right at that very beginning part of that new plan. So if there was ever a time to move forward from your heart, I mean, wow, this is totally it, right? The end of the year, the very end, we went into meditation, and like Pielian and I went in together, and I just literally, I saw this visual of the two of us working like a violet flame furnace. It was really crazy. But what I was seeing was all of this energy that needed to be transmuted, all this discordant energy was just coming in and through us and just shooting out of the top of us. This brilliant, scintillating golden white light. It was absolutely incredible. And that's what it felt like. It was like, okay, so here's our last chance for the year. Let's burn off everything we can, right? So fantastic. Now let's move into the new year, clean, and let's kind of move forward from our hearts and do exactly what Pope Francis is talking about, to not be in judgment and to be in that place of inclusion instead of being in the place of exclusion, which all the churches have been up until now, And I love the word, churches are big on saying, let's be tolerant. What a bunch of crap that is. Look at that word tolerance. What does that mean? I mean, there's judgment built into the word. Yeah. Really, I mean, tolerance says, well, I'm still right, but I'll let you kind of go along with your own thing. But really, I'm right. No. We're going to stand in the place of acceptance, right? Acceptance. It's not up to you to decide what's right or wrong for another person. That's up to them. You have no say in it, and you don't want part of that karma. Just let it go. Just stand in the place of acceptance. Love everyone where they're at without judging where they're at. Understand? Big deal. It is a big deal. Okay, so what I want to say is that this world that is completely opposite of where you come from, we have gotten so used to it, and we're so ingrained in the way we think here that we literally have everything completely backwards as far as what we think is real and what we think lies outside of the realm of possibility or reality. And so I'm going to use a certain thing as an example. This was something that hit me, I don't know, a year or so ago. And when I saw it, I was like, this is like the perfect way to describe this. So you all know what a magician is, right? And what does the magician do? Pielian, I'll ask you. What does the magician do? What's his job?
Create an illusion.
Right. And then beyond creating the illusion, what's his job? If he's a good magician, what can he do?
Tricks.
Right. If he's a really good magician, what can he do to you?
Make me disappear.
You're crazy. Okay, I'll answer it. If he's a really good magician, he can make you believe it. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's right. So he's there to create the illusion, but better yet, he's there to get you to believe that his illusion is real. That's what a magician does. Okay? I'll just sit with that for a second. The magician is there to make you believe that his reality is your reality, right? So, I want you to think of this. It's completely backwards. This world that we are in and experiencing, this world is the magic. All right? I want you to stop right now and forevermore thinking about the illumined worlds or heaven or nirvana or whatever, Shambhala, whatever you want to call it. Shangri-La. I want you to stop thinking about that place as the magic place. And I want you to start seeing this place as the magic place, because this is the illusion. And the other spot whatever you want to call it, is what's real. Therefore, if you can see yourself as a multidimensional, ever-expanding being that covers all levels of awareness, okay, this being the densest, and you can recognize that this is just a speck in everything that you are. The vast majority of what you are is already in that other state of awareness, right? So what's normal, really? What's normal is the state of non-polarity, where you truly exist. And this is the magic, because we've all been convinced that this is real, that this is the way it's supposed to be. That you're supposed to be born in a little baby body with no memory whatsoever of where you came from and your other life experiences. And then you're supposed to have to start fresh and learn everything all over again. And then eventually, grow up and move into understandings and knowledge. But then at some point the body decays and then it's time to die and do it all over again. And we're accepting this. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. Now, a physical form may fall away, but where do you go? You think you actually go someplace? Where is there to go? If you're a thought in the mind of God, where's there to go? Think about that for a second. If you're a thought in the mind of God, where's there to actually go? Do you know that if you lose a loved one, you actually can be more connected to that person dead than you could have been when they were alive? That always trips people up. Because, but I lost the person. Well, yeah, you lost the physicality of the person. But I'm going to tell you something. The majority of the time that you were with the person in physicality, you weren't actually with the person. You were only experiencing yourself in that person. Because that person was functioning as your mirror. The mirror for your unconscious mind that you refuse to see as yourself, and that's what you got. When the physical form falls away and the person actually moves into a greater state of their own awareness, depending on wherever they need to be, at that point, when you call that person present, they're fully present with you. Fully present in their divine state. Fully present. And one moment of that is worth 20 years of the other. Because once you've had that experience, it just, you can't even begin to compare it with just physically being with someone, because it's just so far beyond that experience. When you actually experience another person, the essence of that other person as existing within you, it takes everything to a completely different level. That's what it is to truly see someone. But Tony used to talk about that, the fact that she could see you. I see you. And I thought that I understood what she meant until I started having these specific instances where I literally am with the absolute essence, God essence of an individual. And there's just no comparison. It's like you can't not see them that way from that point on. That's all you can see, because it's so beautiful and perfect and amazing. I mean, if each one of you would allow yourself to embrace how incredibly beautiful you are for just a second, you just wouldn't be able to carry on with the personality you've been walking with all these years. Because you're gorgeous and you just can't see it. It's amazing. So, up until now, we have contemplated that, magic is this certain thing. Fairies aren't real, right? And things like, dragons can't exist, and the gods of Olympus didn't exist, and like all of this stuff. There's a reason all of that exists in our documentation, people. It's because it is real. But you're standing right now in the level of awareness that sits outside of its capacity to experience it. Now, so as a little example, we'll take this to a science place, right? For those of you who want proof. So if you look at the I don't know what they call it exactly. There's a name for it. But if you look at the scale of visible light, the visible light spectrum, right? If the entire spectrum of light, say you could place it on a map, and let's say it ran from California to Michigan. Okay, get your head around how long that is, the actual known spectrum of light. If it was that long, the amount that you are capable of witnessing through your senses, your physical senses, is about 2 inches of that. Okay, really sit with that for a second. California to Michigan, however many, say that's 2,000 miles, it's got to be more than 2,000 miles, however long that is. You're experiencing 2 inches of that 2,000 some odd mile stretch. Now, if you can sit there and say to me that you believe that something like fairies don't exist, you're kidding yourself. There is so much activity going around all around you that you aren't even aware of. It would blow your mind if you got even, just the tiniest bit of that. Even if you could just tune into all the wireless signals that are being sent right now, it would completely overwhelm you. You wouldn't be able to function. I mean, imagine all of these signals, they're sending out these big bubble pulses that are heading in all directions, running through your body and running like through the walls, like everything. Can you imagine all of a sudden you can see it all? It completely freak you out. So remember, you've got everything's experiencing on a level of vibration. All right. And your vibration is sitting in this certain level, this certain octave, which is therefore manifesting itself in whatever it is that you're experiencing in your own world. The greater part of you is experiencing, all of it, but your awareness is locked into a certain point. So right now you're locked into 3D awareness. Okay. And as you do your work and your vibration moves higher and higher and higher, you actually start to experience different levels of reality. It's just that they overlap so much and they're so tight together, you won't feel like you're moving. Does that make sense? It doesn't feel like you're moving. But if you take someone who's done like really deep work for, say, a year, and they'll feel like, well, I still feel the same, right? I feel like I always felt. If you were capable of taking that person and dropping them back into the level of vibration that they were at when they started, it would completely blow their mind, because it's so different and it doesn't seem like it, because you become, today's vibration, you become used to it. And then tomorrow when you move again, you feel that movement. And then you come to a place and you feel like you get stagnant. You're like, oh, well, it must be I'm not doing anything anymore. And it's like, no. You just got used to that level of vibration. And now it doesn't feel different anymore, So now it'll be time to step it up again before long. But that's what's actually going on. So it's very cool. So, you're not where you were 20 years ago. So it doesn't even matter if you've been walking a conscious spiritual path or not. I promise you're more evolved today than you were 20 years ago. All of humanity is, and you are certainly a part of that. Okay. So the real magic going on is actually to experience this polarized reality. All right. Because nothing less than perfection can actually exist anyway. And God knows this world is not perfect. Okay. So remind yourself, again, the perfection is what is commonplace. All right. The imperfection is not commonplace to who you are. All right. Yeshua, the man you know as Jesus, he spoke to this whole thing directly. What did he say? No one ever pays attention to this, and it's the most profound statement. He said, "The works that I do shall ye do also, and greater works than these shall ye do." Okay? He's telling you flat out, there is nothing special about me. You're that. You've just forgotten it. But you're this too. And you're going to get there. Right? And I want you to start taking that seriously. That's not fluff. It's profound spiritual teachings. That's what he came to do. Right? Where did he say God lived? Within him. Of course. Because that's true for all of us. All right? Jesus was here as a profound example of what Christ consciousness is. He was here saying, we're all moving in that direction, and I'm here to guide you if you'll just pay attention and listen to what I'm saying to you. He didn't say, worship me. Heavens no. Masters are so humble. A master would never, ever say, worship me. Ever. If you ever think you're around a master and they say something to that effect, there's your first clue that they're not a master. There is such humility at that level because there's no one there to be a master anyway. Okay? And Jesus would be right in the middle of that. He knew himself to be God. He didn't take the form of Jesus seriously. Right? He came here, he did his work, he pointed the way, and he's like, come on with me. Like, what are you waiting for? Let's ascend this body. Let's raise that level of vibration so high that this form disappears here because it doesn't need to be here. This is the illusion. It doesn't need to be here. Follow me, right? Okay. This is great. I'm never this churchy. Like I did Catholic stuff tonight and I'm bringing up Jesus. This is fantastic. This is great. If you're into reading, there's a great book series called The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East by Baird Spalding. Check that out because he speaks directly to this. He spent time with masters, and this is what they're saying all the time. This is you. You're the one holding yourself back. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a song for you tonight. It's called Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, and it's so cool. I want to do it as a meditation, but the energy of it is fantastic. But we're going to go into meditation. This is a new year. It's time for you to set your new intentions. I want you to set those intentions from this space. You are already the Christed being that you think you're striving to become. You are already that. I want you to expect the miraculous because it is your birthright. You are a divine co-creator with God. It is your birthright, and I want you to start expecting that and not expecting this feeble little existence that everybody seems to be living here, because it is not who you are. Okay? So again, we're going to do this as meditation. This is time to set your intentions for this year. Okay? I want you to expect nothing less than something miraculous for all of humanity this year. There's no reason that we need to believe that it has to take a long time to do anything here. If you knew you could manifest something instantaneously, would we sit around and hem and haw over how we were going to get things done? Heavens no. And did you realize that with the heart math thing, I think they figured out that if it's like 144,000 people all were awakened, fully awakened, literally consciousness on the planet would shift in a heartbeat. It would just be done, and everybody would automatically move into that level of consciousness. So you're here to be of service, and you're here to continue moving this forward. Take it seriously. You're not here just to live a dull little life and then to die and to have to do it over and over and over again. You're here to add your light to the world. So let's start doing it every day. An act of kindness every day, right? Would leave like 365 people a year that you could touch and change their life. It's beautiful. Imagine what would happen if you did like more than one a day, right? It'd be a beautiful thing.
Well, I was going to say, why don't we plug the websites?
Yeah, I was going to say, keep your comments coming. I know a lot of people are sending comments to PLN personally. You can always send questions to questions for Shusara at theshambhalacenter.org. We're keeping a list of questions so I can make sure that I touch on these things, and I'm happy to receive those. Keep looking at our Facebook page, which is facebook.com, the Shambhala Center. We run the Creative New World group as well, and that is facebook.com. Add your energy. We're running also, and very excited about what's going to end up being a global monthly meditation that we're calling Lightworkers United. That will be held the second Tuesday of every month. We're doing that. It's a 2-hour meditation we're actually holding. So if you are listening and you're in another city, we're here in Charlotte. If you're in another city and you would like to actually create a physical space to have people come to do that 2-hour meditation so that you can do it simultaneously with other people in the country and in the world, please do contact us and let us know, and we can work to set that up. So we're trying to get a website set up for that so that we can all start doing these meditations together and holding space for humanity. for long stretches every month. And, it makes such a huge difference. We can't see it from where we're sitting, but it really does. He's laughing. That's very funny. All right, so we'll ask Don again, can we get our music and we'll go into our meditation? Really let this music sit with you. It will stir your soul. It brings me to tears every time I hear it. It's so powerful. Here we go. We love you. Good night. You are beginningless. You are endless. You are divine.